I'm Chelsea DeRossi. I'm the Clinical Coordinator of Adult Programs with Our House Grief Support Center in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Fredda Wasserman. I'm the Clinical Director of Adult Programs and Education at Our House. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about working with our grieving clients.
So I want to introduce you to Mary. Mary is 26 years old and she's currently living with her parents. And they've been working really hard to eat healthy and change their lifestyle so that they can all, as a family, lose a little bit of weight. And Mary's dad has done a really great job and lost about 40 pounds, and it's his birthday coming up. So Mary and her mom decide to go out shopping for his birthday, but also to get him a really nice gift because he's lost all this weight. Well, they spend a couple hours shopping and they come home, they put the key in the door, and as soon as they open the door, they see Mary's dad face down on the treadmill and not moving. Mary's mom just drops the shopping bags and she just lets out this guttural cry and she's screaming, and Mary, she's just frozen. She's paralyzed and doesn't know what to do or what to say, and she finds herself running over to her father and starting chest compressions as soon as she can, and she realizes that there's no breath and no movement, and she can just see his face. And in this time, her mom must have called 911 because the paramedics come in and they have to literally pull her from his body so that they can start trying to resuscitate him. Now, he doesn't survive and he does die, and Mary's having a really hard time. So she goes in about 3 weeks later to see her therapist, and she starts describing all of these physical and mental, emotional, and spiritual manifestations of her grief. And she starts talking about how she has these vivid images of those final moments of her father's life and how she can just still picture him lying face down on that treadmill, and she can feel her heart almost tighten and squeeze like it's in a vice as she can remember what it was like to do the chest compressions and to blow that breath into him and have no response. Well, the therapist has a very well-intentioned and empathetic response, and she does say to Mary, we hope that what you can do when you're having these vivid images come up for you is to really think about something else or distract yourself, because those images that can come up can be unpleasant, and it's unhealthy if you're worrying about having your own heart attack, or if your mother is going to have a heart attack. And these are things that Mary has expressed that she's very concerned about, and she's very worried might happen to herself or her mom. And she's also even wondered if she, had come home 10 minutes sooner, or if they hadn't even gone shopping that day, if she could have done something differently. And the therapist again says, that wouldn't have changed the outcome. And again, with a very empathetic response, says really try and think of other things other than those final vivid moments. Well, what I would encourage, or what we would encourage you really as therapists to say instead, is really kind of encourage her to really go back to that moment and say, what was that like for you? Really tell me more about what you remember those chest compressions being like. What were the sounds and smells, and what were the feelings you were experiencing? Because it is really our role as the therapist to be with her in that moment. We are responsible to take her to that place and ask her the questions that people in the community or her friends or family aren't even talking with her about, and to be okay sitting with her as she discusses all of these painful emotions that are coming up for her. That is our role as a therapist, to be able to sit with that and to ask the tough questions.
So let's fast forward a couple of months, and Mary is coming to us on a regular basis to help to process her grief. And we know that although sometimes she feels very, very hopeless and feels like she's making no progress at all, that part of our responsibility is to listen to all of that pain. And in addition, at the same time, to help her get in touch with resilience. As George Bonanno has said, the theoretician about resilience, resilience is coming back to a state of equilibrium and full life in the face of adversity. So, how do we do that? How do we do both? How do we address the questions that she's facing now, such as how will I ever get back to law school? How will I ever pass the bar? Her father was her cheerleader. He was her inspiration. She's the whole reason that she's going to law school now. She has questions about her future as a woman, as a potential mother someday, and the deep sadness that her father won't know these children. She's concerned that she's going to feel this deep pain forever and not be able to see any light along the tunnel, not be able to see how she's going to go on in so many ways. So as we along with her oscillate between processing the pain and recognizing that healing has happened, we want to help her to know that we are there with her by asking her again some questions that might get her to really recognize some of the progress that she's making and encourage her in that way. When she talks about how will she get through law school without her dad to inspire her and cheer her on, we will help her with exercises and interventions that will help her remember the things about him that are intrinsically in her now. Some of the lessons that he's taught her, some of the confidence that he has built in her. Let her have a letter that she writes to him, or maybe one that he writes to her, encouraging her. Let her have a conversation with him, allowing her to connect with the strength that her father gave her. When she thinks about her future and children that won't know him, instead of saying, well, we won't worry about that, or something that so many people tell us their therapists say, we would talk about, well, what is his legacy? What will you want to pass on to your children, or perhaps anyone who didn't know your dad, about the kind of person he was, about the values that he instilled in you and you might want to, in fact, instill in your children. Let her experience those surges of memory and joy that will inspire her. And when she wonders if grief will ever end, we take a gentle look with her at not the fact that her grief isn't over or behind her, because that would be an unrealistic expectation, but what little bits of progress has she seen? Maybe she's noticed that she actually went out with a girlfriend a couple of nights ago and had fun and laughed. The fact that she came back and cried the whole way on her drive back doesn't mean that progress isn't being made, because resilience is a natural, innate human trait, and we want to hold both. When we see someone seeming to feel much better at certain moments, or notice that there's times when they aren't in the depths of their grief, we don't expect that it's going to be a trajectory that just keeps going in a straight line. We know that it's going to be both. It's going to be the roller coaster ride, the ebb and flow of the feelings, and to let her know that just having the experience of things being lighter is the best predictor that things will continue that way. And with the theories of J. William Warden about continuing bonds, let her know that the goal in no way is to put grief behind her, but to learn to adapt to her life and have a positive, loving, lifelong relationship with her dad.